Good morning. I want to call to order the meeting of the February 25th, 2013 meeting of the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission. At this time, if you would stand with us, Commissioner Steve Sandlin will lead us in our prayer and our pledge.
Let's bow. Heavenly Father, we thank you for our many blessings that you have so given us. Father, we thank you for this great community and for the positions that you have given us in here on Planning Commission, that we see fit and do the right things for our community and for our country. Heavenly Father, continue watching over us, guide, guard, and direct us. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Roll call, Gail, please.
Rhonda Allen.
Here.
Jim Averwater.
Here.
Veronica Buchanan.
Here.
Will Jordan.
Here.
Mike Cush.
Present.
Craig Lynch.
Present.
Pettis Reed.
Here.
Steve Sandlin.
Here.
Mike Vaught.
Here.
Jeff Phillips.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the minutes, and I'll call on our Vice Chair, Craig Lynch.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve those minutes.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Items withdrawn or deferred, Doug?
No, sir, nothing withdrawn or deferred.
Very good. Bond plat extensions. A is Windham Cove, bond extension for a year. Dale?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have two extensions, Wyndham Cove and then Lewis Downs. Both of these extensions, they're asking for a year, has to do with the economic situation and their houses, they haven't built many houses. We recommend approval on these requests for extensions, sir.
Okay, we'll take both of them. The second one is Lewis Downs, sections 1 and 2, and that's bond extension for a year as well. First extension?
No, neither one, both of these have been extended about, it's either 3 or 4 times.
Wow. Okay. Any questions?
Make a motion we approve both extensions.
Second motion.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, one question though. Dale, we're watching the bonding part of it and all that sort of stuff, and they're staying up. Any homes in these two, or?
There are some homes in Lewis Downs, Wyndham, and Wyndham Cove, yes, but very few. It's only 3 or 4.
Right. Well, the economic situation, we're understanding why all these are coming for extensions, but the bonding part though, y'all are watching those, making sure that those rebonded each time, or that they stay up to date.
That's correct. We had a challenge there for a couple of years where we had some problems, but we're staying with it now. If they don't get the extension, or if the bank doesn't bring in the paperwork ahead of time, we pull it. We pull several. In fact, we're in the process of pulling 2 right now.
Where are these two, Dale?
Let's see. Lewis Downs, I believe, is off of 99.
I think Lewis Downs is Christiana, and it off of
Christiana, that's
off Rock Springs Road.
Right. And then Wyndham Cove is.
It's on Allen Road, isn't it?
I'm drawing a blank. Okay.
I believe it's on Allen Road off Leanne.
Lewis Downs does have have homes back in there, and I know there's footer being dug for one home, another additional home now. So
Buildings picked up in almost all of our existing. I mean, it's not like it was back in the early, 2008 or so, but they are picking up. So,
As long as the bond's intact, it's in our best interest to keep extending this, because
Right.
if not, we'd have to call the bond and take them over ourselves, and we don't need to do that.
Right.
I agree with that.
Well, that's just the point I was asking though, is we don't miss that loophole or something of the extension here and then the extension of the bond itself. And I know it's a tougher
Well, what we've done is
on your department to make sure that those things coincide with one another, but we just don't want to miss anything here.
what we've done in our department now, since we had the challenge, we set up. We had them on a database to start with, but now we've got alarms set up. They show up at 90 days, 60 days. They show up on my desk, on Bob Reed's desk, and Todd Sullivan's desk. There's 3 of us tracking in case there's somebody not here or tied up with another meeting. And so it's, so far, it's working pretty well.
Good deal, thank you.
Item 7, waiver request. Item A, Stan Baskin for Randall Bolijack is requesting a waiver from the distance requirements for fire hydrants for subdivision lots for property located along Rocky Hill Road.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and good morning, Commissioners. We're going to be, as you can see, we've got a little hardware here to play with today. This will be kind of a learning experience as we go forward. I promise I'm not trying to hide behind the monitor here, but it's about as low as it can go, and due to my height, this is about as good as it's going to get unless I get a booster chair, and that's not going to happen. So,
It's in the budget.
yeah. We'll look at that a little later. So hopefully, as we go forward with this again, this will be kind of a learn as we go kind of experience. If you guys would like us to try different things as we're going forward with this technology, just let us know. It's just kind of a work in progress right now, but we're very excited to be moving forward with this. This first waiver request, as you stated, is for Randall Bolijack. It's located along Rocky Hill Road. Basically, what they're asking for is a waiver to the subdivision regulation requirement that requires a fire hydrant within 1,000 feet of all the lots. This is an existing about a 20-acre tract of land. Basically, what he's wanting to do is take about 2 acres where the existing house is, and you can see that on the plat. It's in your agenda materials as well as what's on the screen. Again, really all they're doing is just subdividing that 2 acres off, leaving the remaining 18 or so acres just undisturbed. And part of the issue with that is, although the house has been in existence for quite a while, I think 30, 40 years at least, the lot in and of itself would be a new lot, and since it's under 5 acres, would have to conform to the subdivision regulations. Other than that issue, everything appears to be in good order with it. We did hear from Consolidated Utility. They said that they could not support a hydrant at that location. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Is there a representative here?
I don't guess there is, no, sir. We always ask someone to be present, but again, it's not necessarily required, and this is a fairly straightforward
If CUD
application.
says they can't support it, that says volumes to me. With that, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 8, submitted for preliminary plat approval. Item A, Rose Ridge, 13-1001, 6 lots on 28.18 acres, zoned RM, located along Colon Avenue, Zoilt Muller developer.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this piece of property is located along Collin Avenue. This property is actually within the litigated area within when Murfreesboro annexed a portion of property out in this area a few years back. This is part of that litigation area because of where the Muirwood subdivision is. That's kind of what started this whole situation as far as the litigation is concerned. You can see on the plan that's on your screen, Collin Avenue will kind of take just a 90-degree turn and go to the back. What he's looking to do are about 7 different lots, including the detention pond here, residential lots. This will be a public road, will be built to county road specifications. One of the issues I'll get to that in just a second. As far as our comments are concerned, one of the things that we did notice is right here, the zoning of the property is zoned RM now. Although he's got it down here, it's not zoned. They forgot to change it right here. Everything else is correct, but this property is no longer zoned R15. It's zoned RM. There's some issues with the drainage as well that I'll let Mr. Corbett discuss here in just a moment. But one other item that I did want to bring to your attention, one of the comments we had, and after looking at our GIS, is a portion of this property actually is in the city limits of Murfreesboro. You can see this is the city limit line right here. And you can see that this portion of the property, this portion of the property right here, as well as this small portion right through here, is within the city of Murfreesboro's corporate limits. As such, they have also asked that the applicant submit this to the city for review. Now, with that, they did have a number of comments that they passed along to us, which, of course, we really can't condition approval upon because it's not within our jurisdiction. But I did want to make the board aware of that. And also, I know that there were some drainage issues, and I'll let Mr. Corbett discuss those as well.
Well, the engineering firm has addressed most of our issues. Where the pond is okay. There's a little challenge with, and we didn't get a hold of them till Friday. We had looked at it. They made the changes. We got them back, and we looked at it again on Friday. So the change that we need to talk to them about, we can actually do in a construction drawing, so it's not a major thing because the plan they have in place will work. We just have a couple of things about the elevations that we need to work out. The rest of the drainage in the subdivision meets our requirement.
I will say just one other quick comment. The outlet structure detail right through here on the larger sheets was kind of fuzzy, didn't copy real well, so we would just ask them to clarify it, to make it clearer, make it a little larger or something, make it easier to read. But again, that's not something that they couldn't handle, administratively. So we'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
So can you talk about the city's comments? Although you just warned us that it doesn't really have a bearing on.
Yes, I mean, I've got them right here. I'd be more than happy to talk about them. Of course, the one item that we talked about already, the portion is in the city limits, so they wanted to see the plan. Of course, sanitary sewer is available to the property, even though the applicant's not tying into it. He's choosing not to tie into it. So, of course, the city would recommend that he do that and make a request to be an outside the city sewer customer. They'd also like to see that the street and everything be designed to city standards. The city engineer would need to approve the plans to tie into the existing street, which not uncommon if you have a county street that ties into the city street. They feel that the design of Collin Avenue is a little awkward the way it's designed. They also don't like the fact that it's backed up right to Linden Drive, these lots right through here. They are proposing a fence along this property line right here for separation, and there wouldn't be any access permitted, but they don't particularly care for the way that is designed. Let me see what else we got here. Again, some more, the radius of the cul-de-sac here, they had some concerns and felt that it should be a little wider than it is. They said it appears that fill is being proposed in the floodway to build up the detention pond. If that is the case, an ORI certification would be required for the fill in the floodway, which really would be one of our requirements as well. There was a comment here about the pond being located in the same location as a CUD water line. That was actually a comment that CUD had picked up on, and we passed along to them on the front end, so that pond has been shifted. There's some issues with Scottish Glen showing water quality protection areas along the west bank of Puckett Creek, which would be in this area. Let's see. They've put easement there. There's some questions here. There was easements back here. The original plan that we received pretty much detailed everything east of the creek, but nothing really over here. And one of their comments, as well as ours, was show all the easements and everything on this side of the creek, which they have done. There was also some concern about whether or not lots 1 and 2, these larger lots right here, we're going to have access off of Scottish Drive and Roxburgh, which they have since put a note in there saying that there would be no access. The only access that there would be is just for maintenance as far as lawn mowing and those sort of things, because this will be part of these folks' property even if the creek separates them, so they'll have to maintain those. And that is fairly, as far as the comments go, that pretty much sums it up, Mr. Cush.
So our decision really, we only need to be looking at the county portion that is to the right of the property line.
Well,
or the city county.
Well, right. I mean, I think the only thing we can really do is vote on whether or not it meets the county requirements. And, we feel that based on the comments that we've made and the fact that they've addressed those, if they address them all sufficiently,
Okay.
that it should do that.
So the city comments of Collin Avenue and drainage and things like that really does not come into play in our decision one way or the other.
I don't think it does. Now,
The city has to make their own determination on that part, is that correct?
I believe that's correct, yes, sir. Now, when they go meet with the city, if they haven't already, when they meet with them, if the city decides that they don't want, because again, it's one thing if they're going to be accessing the city sewer, which they're not. So, I think really all they're doing is looking at, I kind of agree with you, is looking at these areas right through here. But, I mean, we'll just need to wait to hear word back from the city as far as what other comments they may have. But when I spoke with city officials regarding this matter late last week, because these comments that we received, really we didn't get until later in the week, basically what I told them was I can't condition or I can't recommend that they be conditioned upon any of these comments. I mean, some of them were the same as some of the ones that we had, but there are others in here that, would they like to see us as a city street developed the same as this? I'm sure they would, but if it meets our requirements, I can't really condition it upon that.
And if they were to put in play the city comments that they're asking, that really would not have any effect on an approval or disapproval today on what we vote on the county.
Well, I think you could vote on it today, and if they decide to make some of the changes that the city has recommended, I think it would change the plat in such a way that they would probably have to bring it back for us to look at again.
Okay.
Because some of the changes, especially regarding the road, as far as the design of the road, I don't think that's such a big issue. But if they were to move the location of the road, kind of change the way they were doing the subdivision, if that road shifts a lot or, really much at all, I think that would change the plat enough that it would have to come back for y'all to review.
All right.
Doug, you said this is zoned RM, so are we talking about houses or multifamily?
It's houses. RM stands for medium density.
That's
residence,
right, I'm still thinking about the RS.
Right, and in the city, RM is multifamily, so it is. I do admit it is a little
You
confusing.
said this area was part of the litigation, so is this part of that, whenever that's settled, this is gonna be in the city? Or has this not ever been?
Well, it's never. I don't think it's ever been litigated at this point. I know it's been in the court systems for a number of years now. I don't really know where it is in the process. It's not something I just keep up with a whole lot because it doesn't really involve us. But if it's ever settled, if it's settled similar to the first lawsuit that they had around the Brinkley Road, Manson Pike area, all that area did become effective in the city about a year or two ago. I would expect the same for this, and then this would become in the city, yes, sir.
How does our cul-de-sac size differ from the cities?
Well, our cul-de-sac is the right-of-way is 100 feet across. I'm not sure what the cities are. Does it say there?
Their comment says that where did they go?
So it's a 50-foot radius.
They wanted the cul-de-sac to be increased to 86 feet in diameter. I'm not sure about that.
And ours is diameter of what?
Well, the right-of-way is 100-foot diameter.
Yeah, the diameter is 100 feet. So.
Yeah, it really doesn't show. Okay.
The diameter, basically, it's in, turning around your emergency vehicles and that type of stuff.
Our pavement would be 100 feet?
It'd be 80 feet.
Be 80 feet. Our
Yeah,
pavement would be,
that's-
but we'd have 100 feet.
Right.
It's
If that's
80 feet.
and if
Okay.
that's the case, then that is a little shorter than what the city would recommend. 86 foot, I imagine, is their paved area. Because I think their right-of-way width may be about the same as ours, if not maybe just a tiny bit larger, if I remember right.
And when they say have the road built to city standards, is that the only difference? Or are they talking about curb and gutter? I don't know, is this gonna be curb and gutter?
I think this is.
Well, this one has ditches in it, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
that's-
curb and gutter would be, the city's typical, they use the curb and gutter with most of pretty much all their development, so that'd be another difference.
But we can't look at this any different than one that's 10 miles outside the city limits and one that's abuts the city
Right.
limits.
Are you ready for a motion, or are we still discussing?
Either way, that lot number 2 is Big Flag Lot, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's correct.
It's got access up here, but they can't use it. They can't get across the creek anyway, so. If I ever saw a lot with quite so much stuff on it, it's lot 1. Easements, stormwater.
Yeah, one other item
And
that
brief.
I did want to bring your attention, and thank you, Mr. Sullivan, for reminding me. The developer did pull a building permit for he wants to put the house in the area of Lot 2. Now, of course, if this plan were to go away, he could still put the house up here on Lot 2. Nothing is stopping him from doing it. He's got a house location, and he's got soils area. I think really the only reason he's wanting to do that was just go ahead and start doing some clearing around the area. I don't necessarily think he was really wanting to just to rush construction forward or try to, put the cart before the horse, so to speak. But, I mean, this is a valid lot, even as it exists today, so there's nothing that says he couldn't do that. But I wanted to make you all aware of that.
Lot number 6 as well. How do you get to lot number 6?
It would just be here at the end of the cul-de-sac.
So it's really not a cul-de-sac, right?
Well, it's a cul-de-sac right here, and he would just have a driveway right here at the end of the cul-de-sac, is what he would do.
They don't all turn out to be pretty pie-shaped lots then, the cul-de-sac.
What's that? I'm sorry?
They don't always turn out to be nice, pretty pie-shaped lots
Right.
then, the cul-de-sac.
Right.
Ready, Mike, if you're ready for a motion.
I would make a motion to approve based on staff comments and county engineer's comments on the stormwater quality. And if we need to put language in that, well, let me think about that. I just want to make sure that in the motion that we understand we are just passing or voting on the county issues and the decision is irrelevant of the city's comments. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I would make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, need a second?
Second.
I have a second. Other discussion? Doug, you okay?
Yes, sir. I was just trying to see if maybe Mr. Lewis was in the audience. I didn't see him. That was all.
I just have one question. I see that the detention pond is labeled on lot 7. How will there be any, how will you distinguish lot 7 from lot 1? Because it looks like it's all just gonna be together. I mean, they're not gonna,
Well, there are property lines. We'll just
Right.
follow the line.
I guess you're probably saying just in the appearance of everything, it would look like it looks like
it's
it's
just
the
a
same
continuation of
property.
lot 1.
Right.
But it's cut out.
And I know sometimes we've talked about, safety issues of, as it relates to detention ponds and all that, and I'm not necessarily saying it needs to be fenced or whatever, I'm just curious, is that anything we need to be concerned about?
What we currently do is if the pond is more than an acre or more than 2 feet deep, they have to put a 4-foot fence around it. There's been, debate about does that work? Currently, that's just the way the regulations are at this point in time, and so this one is more than 2 feet deep. They'll have to fence it, and they'll have to. The developer, you have to maintain it in perpetuity because he'll sign a maintenance agreement for that, and he's going to live on lot 2. My understanding is, or he'll have to create a HOA where all the lot owners would share the cost of maintaining the detention area.
I don't believe there is much perpetuity. Moves, somebody dies, whatever, 20 years, 30 years from now, there's nobody left to do that. Homeowner association falls apart.
I inherited daddy's detention pond,
Did you get your clarification on lot 7?
Good, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? And the motion carries. Item 8B, Sterling Ridge, Section 4, and the second re-subdivision of Lot 12, Section 3, Item 13-1002, 16 lots on 16.54 acres zoned RM, located off of Allen Road, Harold Homes Incorporated developer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you stated, this property is part of the extension of the Sterling Ridge subdivision, Section 4. It's also part, you'll see that the second re-subdivision of Lot 12 is also in here. You can see on your monitor here, the original Lot 12 kind of went through right through here. So they're proposing to make this area Lot 12, and a portion of that would become Lot 13 as well, and even a small portion here, Lot 14. This is located to the north of Allen Road. The final plat for Section 3 was considered by the Planning Commission at their March 26, 2012 meeting. This section does propose an extension of Rockingham Drive, as you can see here, and then a small cul-de-sac, Rockingham Court, off of the main drive, which, although the names are the same, 911 will allow a court like this running off of a drive, so that's not unusual. One of the requirements of the subdivision regulations is that the block length cannot exceed 1,600 linear feet. From basically the entire length of this road up through here is just a shade over that, 1,639 feet. So they are asking for a 39-foot waiver for Section 4 to that requirement. So if you do make a motion to approve, if you could do that subject to the waiver request. Basically, the way the regulation reads is unless there's a cross street, then that regulation takes effect. Since this is a cul-de-sac, this would not qualify as a cross street. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that. Besides this issue, the plat appears to be in good order. This is a preliminary, so I'll let Mr. Corbett make any comments regarding the drainage of the property.
In looking at and evaluating, the first thing was we had them put their detention area on a separate lot, which is standard. The way this will work is the water will go through that detention area. There's a small portion that goes out the end of the drive there, but they put another detention area further on that other piece. They own that other piece of property over there, so they're meeting our requirements there. The detention area will overflow, or is designed to overflow a certain point. The water from the current subdivision and this eventually goes into that big sinkhole you'll see there. And we don't, we have to design for those sinkholes, they have to design for them as if they're closed. You know, they collapse and they can't take water. And then at that, they build up to a certain overflow point, and then it's basically going to flow, and I don't have a north area from on this thing, but
This way, north is going up.
North is to your right.
so it'll be in a north westerly direction there. There's a stream overland flow, but there is it's the original design. We took care of that. We had to spend a lot of time on that original design when they brought in dealing with this sinkhole. This is a huge sinkhole, but if it were to collapse or close up, there's a way. So that the subdivision is not flooded, basically, is what it amounts to. And so the design for the thing meets our regulations. We have asked that lot be 15 labeled as an unbuildable lot. Of course, there's no soils on it, so they probably couldn't build there anyway. It's got our pond, but they're going to do that, take care of the construction, and the rest of it meets our requirements.
Homeowners Association, will it be in place to
That's
maintain that?
And the length of the road, that'll have to go to the BZA, correct?
No, you can do that here.
Oh, we
That's
can do it
a
ourselves.
subdivision regulation requirement, so you guys can grant waiver of that. It's just all kind of lumped in, rather than have a separate waiver application, we figured just lump it in with the plat.
This is out in my commission district. It's a good subdivision. They've been doing a good job with it. I'll make a motion to approve with subject staff comments, including the road length.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion?
The 1,600 feet, Doug, is the public safety as far as fire and police, fire mainly, I guess, to
Yeah,
get in and
that-
out without a car street. Is that what?
Yes, I think it is, and also for turnaround areas and
So we're not looking at much there. We probably wouldn't approve anything much over that anyway, but I just want to, that's what it's about.
right, and looking at the property to the south, I mean, it's hard to see right here, but, you know, they talked about the possibility of just making this as a stub out with the possibility, but this property here
It'd be
is
under if
very
you did
long
that.
and it's
Yeah.
very narrow.
Yeah.
I mean, relatively, it's narrow, and trying to have another road with lots on there is just not realistic.
I doubt that neighbor would want to stub out right
Yeah.
there. That would encourage people to come by dumping things and stuff like that. I mean, I know that individual, he doesn't, I can guarantee he doesn't want to stub out right there beside the greenhouse.
Doug, could you drag towards the sinkhole on the property next door? Yeah, there you go. Is that property by Sam Rather that's across the property line, is that also unbuildable right in there?
Well,
I mean, does that sinkhole pretty much kill anything he's got?
if you go through that area, if you look at the aerial, there's a line of sinkholes that go through there that seem to be connected quite a bit on his property. Now, of course, this house is up toward the front. You know, you can, as you know, you can develop on anything if you want to pay the cost. So it'd be expensive, but they're all expensive, so.
All right.
Other discussion? Have a motion to approve. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 8C, Ridgeview at Crescent Ridge, Section 3, formerly Valley View, Section 4. Item 13-1003, 10 lots on 13.35 acres, zoned RM, located
Yeah.
along Barfield Crescent Road, New South Developers LLC developer.
Let me, you'll find both a preliminary and final for this one on here. When we originally approved it, CUD wanted to include this section with Valley View. It had to do, because they're hooking this part to the step system over there. I don't know if it was for billing or whatever, so we said, okay, we'll rename it. Now they've come back and said, no, let's don't do that. So now we're going back and renaming it what it was to start with. All this plat is, the preliminary and the final, and we had to read both because they have to agree, is renaming. That's the only purpose they're here for.
It's already been through the process.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
This actually was considered back in September.
Make a motion to approve it.
Second it.
Motion to approve in a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? And motion carries. Item 9, submitted for final plat approval, A, Colonial Estates, Section 12, I believe it is, Phase 1G, 13-2004, 19 lots on 7.38 acres, zoned RM, located along Dreamer Court, BC Developers LLC developer.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this is the Colonial Estates subdivision. It's another phase of Section 12. You'll recall that in the past, we typically would see 2 or 3 lot phases for this development. At this point, the developer has looked at several more lots in this particular section. It's just simply an extension of Dreamer Court. The road itself is already pretty much in place because of the step system located toward the back of the property. But other than that, the plat appears to be in good order. There was some question about the name here for Wilmington Court. However, 911 has approved the name for that. And besides that, everything else appears to be in good order with it, Mr. Chairman. Do you have any notes?
Our agenda says this is
That's
final.
it's a typo. I apologize. It is a final. I think I got a little happy with the copy paste there and forgot to change it.
I see a couple of different street names on here. One, this little cul-de-sac is Laurel Ridge, and the other one is Wilmington. Am I looking at the correct plat here?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The printed copy I shows Wilmington, and the agenda shows Laurel Ridge. There've been some changes.
Yeah,
on
the original, when they originally submitted it, they did have Laurel Ridge. 911 kind of frowns on using what can be considered a suffix like Ridge as part of the road name, so that's why they came up with Wilmington Court, and that has been approved. Sometimes they switch in between what they submitted and what we end up getting revised. So when we did the agenda staff comments originally, all we had was the original submittal at that point.
Does 911 not have heartburn with calling one Dreamer Court and calling one Dreamer Way?
No, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about for the Sterling Ridge plat. If you have like a court or a drive that run off of each other, they're generally okay with that.
Is this Dreamer Court going to be a cul-de-sac?
Eventually, yes, ma'am. It just way in the back.
Well, how many subdivisions we look at where we have a section 10, phase 1G, and a lot of paperwork come through on, I think they were working on Colonial Estates before I was born, probably.
Been a long time, yes. Bill Cunningham.
Other discussion?
Meets all requirements.
Yes, sir.
Make a motion to approve it.
Second it.
Motion to approve and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. That motion carries. Item 9B, Ridgeview at Crescent Ridge, Section 3, item 13-2005, 10 lots on 3.35 acres, zoned RM, located off of Barfield Crescent Road, New South Developers LLC developer.
This is the final of that preliminary I was telling you about where all it is just renaming it. And the plat, it meets our requirements.
So
Now, this is the first time you've seen the final plat. The preliminary is what came through back in September of last year, so this is the first final plat you've seen.
But it's just renamed it.
That's correct.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve and a second. Any other discussion? Those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 10, submitted for site plan approval, A, Nicely Ice Barn. Item 3006, new construction of 5,200 square feet building on 1.42 acres. Total acreage of the site is 72.9 acres, zoned residential low density, RL, located at 4315 Woodbury Pike. Chris Neely, applicant.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this piece of property is located along Woodbury Pike. Basically, what this use is he makes ice for different sporting events and things like that, consumable ice. And everything pretty much is taken care of in the building that's on the property. They're looking to expand into the back here, a larger building. And I believe there's an applicant. The applicant present? Or, no, you're... Okay, Mr. Huddleston is here if there's any questions regarding this. The building's about 5,200 feet, as you can see on the plan. They are proposing to add a paved parking area, dumpster enclosure with some screening in the back. They are proposing to add some more gravel area. Most of this right through here is already existing gravel, and they are proposing to expand that. Of course, we've told them that that is, the requirement is that that has to be paved, so they are going to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and request a variance to that requirement. There were a couple other items on here. We still have some issue. It looks like there may be some property line issues right through here as far as if this is actually, these two pieces, if they're actually part of the same property, or if this is actually a property line, if they're combined for tax purposes. We did have some concern about that on the back, but it looks like that is all one piece of property, so they've taken care of that. Of course, the track in and of itself is a very large track, but they're just utilizing a small portion of that. I don't think we received drainage calculations for this, so that's something we would need to see. Also, there's not showing on the plan exactly if they're proposing a new septic site or if they're just going to tight line it back to the existing septic site. That'd be something we want to clarify. And there's also one other item here with the utility note regarding the water service, where it looks like they used the wrong title, Muirwood Amenity Center, when this is a different site plan. So we just asked them to fix that prior to getting any building permits or anything. There was also, I believe, some concern regarding the location of the nearest fire hydrant, and one not being within 500 feet, or I'm sorry, 1,000 feet of the property. There is an 8-inch water line through here, and it looks like if there one could be added, one should be. The only other option would be to, if a fire hydrant could not be required here, it might be possible to possibly sprinkle the building and not require a variance from the BZA, but that's something I think that they would need to work out prior, again, to any building permits being issued on the property. As far as the use of the property is concerned, he's just going to continue using it in the way that it's been used, and with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
How far is the closest fire hydrant?
It's outside of 1,000 feet, Bill. I don't think you.
Yeah, it's further than 1,000.
Okay. I don't think it mentions it on here.
Good morning. I'm Bill Huddleston, Huddleston Steel Engineering. When I asked the developer, when I told him about that comment that y'all were saying he needed to add a fire hydrant, he said, well, I've got a metal building and I'm making ice, so nothing's going to burn. So I said, okay, I'll leave it off right now. So I've left it off so far.
Do you think your client would rather sprinkle this building or put in a fire
No,
hydrant?
sir. No, I know he wouldn't want to sprinkle the building.
That's just.
Would say I'd like to say I appreciate any business that's thriving in the county, generating county tax dollars and not moving into the city. So that's always good to support them where we can.
And these are comments I think we can work with the developer on. So I don't think there's anything that could pull up approval. basically, if it can support a hydrant, he'll need to install one. You know, it's not an option, well, I think I'll just go for a variance or sprinkle the building. If it can support it, he'll have to install it.
I make a motion we approve but with a fire hydrant. And subject to
I second it.
Have a motion and a second. Now we're open for further discussion.
How much does a fire hydrant cost installed?
It was about $2,800, I think.
Depends on the size of the line.
That's true.
They've got a scale, so.
The bigger one's more about 8 inches, the smallest one.
Might have some neighbors around there to go in with it too.
Not
They all
likely,
benefit from it.
not likely.
They will benefit from it.
Yeah, I didn't mean that.
But thank you very much.
So, Doug or Bill, are they gonna tie the bathroom, the septic to the existing? Okay.
Other discussion, ready to vote? We have a motion to approve with conditions and staff comments and fire hydrants and everybody ready?
Has there been any opposition? I mean, is the Mark Best property, or anybody said no?
No, we haven't received any complaints about this. I'm not aware of any outstanding zoning violations with the property or anything.
Movies have been right there for generations. They're very well thought of in the community. I can't imagine them having much
I think this is
animosity.
their old home place, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they've been there
Grandmother's,
forever,
yeah.
you know, and stuff, so.
Yeah, the property goes way into
Yeah.
the back. I mean, this is just the portion that fronts along Woodbury. It
Right.
goes way in the back.
Doug, I have a question before we vote. If this were a residential property and it was already an established lot and they were gonna be doing something, adding, that would put it on our radar, would they also be required to install the fire hydrant?
If it were a residential development and they were wanting to add lots, something like, is that kind of what you're saying?
Not creating a new lot here, I'm just saying, let's say they were gonna build an accessory structure, or just something that would put it on our radar, or maybe a secondary dwelling, or something along those lines.
If it's a residential property, probably not. If it were something like a small garage or something to that effect, if they were going to be creating a new lot, then yes. But if they were just adding a small
That's the part that I'm
accessory.
wrestling with a little bit with our new policy, is that, like Will said, you've got an existing business who's trying to expand his business, which is a good thing.
Mhm.
I'm just wrestling a little bit with having a blanket policy that says he's got to add something that was never there before. So
Yeah,
he
well,
can continue his business.
Right. Of course, at the same time, when he first established the business, it may have been at a time, and I'm speaking hypotheticals here at this point, but when a business is originally established, maybe infrastructure out in that area couldn't support something like that. So whenever he expands, if the infrastructure's in place that would permit something like that, would allow him to put a fire hydrant to help increase fire protection in the area, I think it's responsible of us to then require that at that point. That's my opinion anyway.
Okay, we ready? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 11, it looks like on our agenda, is an executive session. At this time, I will call the commission into recess and ask all the recording equipment be turned off and everyone other than planning commissioners leave the room. I want to call the planning commission back to order. We have been in recess and in an executive session, and at this time, our county attorney Josh was going to make a few comments.
All right, we just came out of an executive session where I was able to share with you information on two separate lawsuits involving really the same parties, RCK Joint Venture versus the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission, case number 071586CV and 12CV548. And in turn, as I shared information with you on what's gone on in these cases and where we are on it, you had the opportunity to ask questions of me. But as a result of that, there are some things that that I need some clarification from this body in terms of where you want to go from here. In light of Chancellor Corlew's memorandum of opinion dated December 31, 2012. So I'll bring some of those up in turn for you, for your discussion and direction. The first matter is that in the memorandum of opinion dated December 31, 2012, in case number 071586CV, he being the chancellor, reversed the Planning Commission's denial of the Villas of Twin Oaks preliminary plat in 2007. The order on that was entered January 28, 2013. And so I need direction from this body on what action, if any, you want to take on that portion of the order. Specifically, do you want to appeal that order or not?
Open for discussion or motion, whether or not to appeal.
And at this point, I'm just talking about the reversal of the plat in case number 071586CV.
Based on Chancellor Corlew's opinion, and a refresher of the facts, I'd like to make a motion that we accept his opinion. I'm trying to find the wording and how he worded it. That the denial should be reversed.
We do not appeal.
Yeah, that we do not appeal.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second.
All right, so to make sure I'm clear, your motion at this point is merely that you not appeal the decision?
Yes.
Okay.
Discussion? All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
Okay. The second issue that I brought to you was that in case number 12 CV 548, which deals with damages but all relates to the same set of facts, we had received a settlement proposal from the plaintiff's lawyer, and I relayed that information to you, and I need direction from you on what you want to do with that settlement offer. That is, do you want to accept it or not, or what action would you like to take on it?
Any discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman, you'd related that there was a settlement of $150,000, and I'd like to make a motion that we deny that settlement number. I don't know what that number will be on down the road, or if there will be a number at all, but I make a motion to deny that settlement number.
Okay. Have a motion, and we need a second on that motion.
Second.
Okay. Have a motion and a second to deny the settlement offer. Any other discussion on that? All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? That motion carries. Thank you. Anything else?
Would it be appropriate to maybe empower our chairman to work with staff, the attorney, to try and negotiate that settlement down?
I think that.
Or an individual such as our chairman?
Okay.
And would that be an appropriate motion at this time?
Yeah, because the Planning Commission is itself the defendant, any sort of settlement has got to be approved by this body. So I think that you could authorize the chairman or a member of this body to sort of be the point person, if you will, for some settlement discussions, if you want, with the plaintiffs. But it would be brought back before this body, just to be clear that you can't, I don't think you can appoint somebody to, quote, settle it. You could appoint them to engage in some settlement discussions with the intent that it would be brought back to this body for your approval at a later date.
Would that be at a regular meeting date, or would that be a special kind of a meeting that would have to take place for? Goes through the regular business. Would that be on an agenda or something like that?
No, I think you would wind up wanting to do it kind of like we've done this meeting. You could have an executive session to relay any additional information that relates to the pending litigation. Of course, you couldn't take you can't take action because you can't deliberate in an executive session. So I could relay the information to you about the settlement discussions, if any, at an executive session, and then in a public meeting, you would then deliberate and vote on what you want to do.
Okay, so if we decided that Chairman Phillips would act on our behalf as a body in discussion, and if a settlement number was discussed, he would have to bring that back to us for approval, and we would either agree or not agree. Could he go back then a second time? If we denied the settlement offer and said, go back and do better, he could then go back a second time. We could just keep going back and forth until there was an agreement, if any.
Yes.
Okay.
And then it would have to go on to follow the funding process through the county, I take it.
Right. Well, I think any settlement, we'd have to figure out how the funding would occur during the process.
Josh, I like that idea, and I'm all for our chairman doing that. It's the point of these folks, accusers or whatever, we're not coming back with another number is the only problem. They've thrown this number out, and we've just denied it just a second ago.
Right.
I don't know what authority we have or we should in throwing out a number, and if we're all for that number, and what is the number, you know what I'm saying? It's almost, they're competing within themselves. Okay, whoa.
So in other words, we're not necessarily giving a number back. We would just say, we're not going to accept that number. If you'd like to come back with another number, we'll listen.
I mean, is that
how that
sufficient,
goes?
Josh, to do it that way? Because, I mean, really, we don't have a number.
I hear what you're saying. I don't know how it'll play out. I mean, you're right. In the ordinary sense of things, usually you have a proposal and a counter proposal and a counter to that counter and so forth. And maybe this process is a little different, but that's part of the uniqueness of having a governmental defendant, that the process is a little more.
We're okay to do it this way with our chairman being in negotiations and then come back if they have another proposal or something. If not, then we're at a stalemate and things have to happen the way it has to happen, I guess.
That's true. You could try it that way initially, and then if at that point this body wanted to make a motion and vote on a specific settlement proposal to the plaintiffs, you could do that. Nothing precludes you from doing that now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could do that now. Somebody could say, I move to offer them X if you wanted to do that. But certainly there's no compulsion to do that. You can move it forward however you want.
And then we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm still of the opinion, Josh, that they're not entitled to damages at all. So what other options do we have?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have a couple of options. One option would be that the decision currently in the second case, which is 12 CV 548, Chancellor Corlew denied our motion to dismiss the damages claim based on the statute of limitations. You could potentially appeal that through what's known as an interlocutory appeal, which is a big word, but it just means appealing an order that's not a final order, because that case isn't over either way. But you could appeal that to the Tennessee Court of Appeals to see if Chancellor Corlew's right that it shouldn't be dismissed at this stage. If the Court of Appeals concluded that it should be dismissed based on the statute of limitations, then the damages case would be over. There would be no damages.
So if we go that route, what sort of time frame are you looking at if you had to estimate?
Well, the appellate, several things need to happen. First of all, if you wanted to pursue an interlocutory appeal, I have to file a motion with the trial court requesting permission to pursue the interlocutory appeal, and there's certain criteria in the rules of civil procedure, appellate procedure rather, that control that process. If the trial court approves it, then you file a motion with the appellate court requesting that they likewise allow it, and then you file your appeal brief and so forth, just like you would in a norm of appeal. So it is a fairly lengthy process. They're not witnesses and so forth, so it's just a legal argument. But a typical appeal to get it all the way through the system can easily be 6 months. and it could take as long as a year. There's not really an expedited process because it's interlocutory. So it does create potentially delay in the second case if you go that route.
Is there a time, go ahead.
So is it worthwhile to negotiate while you're also pursuing the option to dismiss?
Sure, you can negotiate and settle a case at any time, whether you are pursuing an appeal or proceeding through a case. At any moment until a judge enters a final order in a case can be settled. So you could do both simultaneously or not. It's just a choice.
What's our time frame on filing an appeal? Do we have to do it within?
The interlocutory appeal?
Right.
I have to file the motion requesting the interlocutory appeal within 30 days of entry of the order. So it's short.
And there's not a downside, I hear, to filing that appeal necessarily.
The only potential downside is the time periods involved. Again, the plant, regardless of what any of our opinions are about damages, as long as the plaintiffs are pursuing damages, I'm sure they would also assert that more time passes, the more damaged they are. So it could matter from that perspective.
But I believe I'm repeating what's been said before, though, but now we could do both simultaneously. We could be trying to negotiate a settlement and have the interlocutory appeal in process and pull it at any time if a settlement is reached, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Do we have a motion on the floor right now?
Yes, that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
We have a motion on the floor.
Throwing that out.
I don't think I made that I don't think I actually made that motion.
The
I
motion
just
hadn't been made yet.
There was discussion about authorizing Chairman Phillips
Right.
to engage with me in negotiations and bring any sort of discussion back to this body.
Can I make a dual motion to proceed with the interlocutory appeal and at the same time give Chairman Phillips authorization to bring back try and work out a settlement and bring it back to the full planning commission?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll second that.
Okay.
If you
Motion
need
and a second. Is that appropriate, Josh?
Yes, and again, I keep saying this, but I just want to be clear. The chairman has no authority to settle the case. He
Yeah,
has
he's
authority
Just to
to
negotiate.
be sort of a
gonna
point
negotiate.
person
He's a
and
mediator.
maybe bring something back to this body.
You might come up with $5 and we could say no.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone understand the motion?
Yeah.
Any other discussion on that? All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? That motion carries.
Okay. I think that's it for issues arising out of the cases.
Thank you, Josh. We appreciate your patience with us today.
Thank you.
All right, Doug, what else you got?
Well, I know we're starting to get a little later in the morning, getting close to afternoon, but there is one item that's not on your agenda under staff reports. We do have the work session, which we can talk about here in just a minute, but I did want to bring the fiscal year 2013, 2014 budget for your review and hopefully approval. Everybody should have a copy of that on their tables. The sheet I'm going to be looking at is going to be the budget worksheet. It's going to look to be the longer sheet, the 11, well, I guess that's 8.5 by 14 sheet. The first thing I'm going to do is just call your attention to the numbers on the bottom there, the category total. And you'll see that our amended budget for 2012-2013 was a little over $752,500. And our requested budget for this upcoming fiscal year is $757,959, which is less than a 1% increase over the budget we had last year. I will say that before we get any further into this, I just want to give a note of thanks to the budget committee that met this past Thursday. That'd be Veronica, Jim, Will Pettis, Mike Cush, and Jeff Phillips was also there as ex officio as chairman of the Planning Commission. But good discussion. They had good questions, and I think it was a good process. So I just wanted to take a moment just to thank them for what they did for this. Just going through the budget, I won't spend just a whole lot of time on all the items. Most of them haven't changed just a whole lot. The first 5 or 6 line items deal primarily with salaries, and we get those numbers directly from finance. We basically just plug those into the budget as they were presented. Part-time personnel, we've had that at $10,000 for the last several years, and we're not proposing to make any changes to that. Longevity pay just goes up every year as the people stay one more year. So you're seeing a couple. The reason that you're seeing kind of a significant jump there is the county's policy for longevity pay is that it doesn't kick in until after you've been with the county 3 years. And we have a couple of employees that are falling under that category this coming fiscal year, so that's why it's kind of kicked in for them. Board and committee fees. This will be a change from what the budget committee saw the other day. We were originally showing $35,000 on that. However, this after speaking with Mayor Burgess on Friday when we met with him and also our finance director Lisa Nolan, we did recommend that basically if they didn't want to keep the $35,000, which would fully fund, basically that'd be 100% attendance at every planning commission meeting and every BZA meeting. Of course, that doesn't happen for various reasons. You know, people have to miss meetings for one reason or another, or sometimes, like as the case earlier this month, we didn't have a meeting because there was no business. So typically, we don't spend the full amount. The budget from last year was $26,000, and you can see our 6-month actual for this fiscal year is $14,300. It's a little bit more than that. We're probably going to have to ask for a budget amendment on that. So we recommended if he did cut that to no less than 30, and he took that recommendation and moved it to 30,000. So that should cover the costs. And again, we keep track of those things as we go forward. In-service training, again, we've left that at $7,000 over the last several years, and that seems to serve us fairly well. The next several categories, Social Security, retirement, disability, and all that again comes directly from finance. So we just plug those numbers in. Communication, you see just a small decrease in that. There's a couple of BlackBerries in our office that really aren't being used. We're paying for service on them. We just propose to get rid of those. But don't foresee that being a hamper to any of the services we provide. The biggest change you'll see is with the consultant line item 308. You'll see this budgeted year, we have $29,700 budgeted for that. At the end of this fiscal year, we should be hopefully through with the subdivision regulations. There was only about $4,700 or so of that money that was actually earmarked for that purpose anyway, so that contract should be pretty much finished. The remainder of that is for the Southeast Transportation and Land Use Study that we're doing in conjunction with the MPO in Nashville, along with Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Laverne. And our portion is budgeted into the remainder of that $29,700, and that's a one-time fee. Once that fee is paid through this budget year, everything else, our local match will be taken care of. Everything else will be federal and state funds. Dues and memberships remains the same, as does our legal notice budget. Our maintenance agreements, you did see, has gone up. The increase on our maintenance agreements for our copiers, wide format copier, scanners, those kind of things. The copiers especially went up more than we anticipated this year. So we've budgeted an increase like we normally do, but then we budgeted an increase on top of that to hopefully offset any increase that may go beyond what we anticipated. And they happen mid-year, so it's difficult to say at the beginning of the fiscal year when that's going to take place. Usually they kick in at the calendar year, is my understanding. So we anticipate increases. However, they've gone up more than we anticipated. So we've budgeted just a little bit more money in there for that. Postal charges, we also went up just a little bit just because of the increase in postal charges. Plus, we are starting to see a little more activity. So we have budgeted just for a small increase there. Gasoline, you'll see we have budgeted a little bit more there as well, for the reason, again, that we are seeing more activity, so we're driving more, plus the cost of gas is increasing, as I'm sure everybody have noticed over the last month or so. Office supplies, periodicals, other supplies and materials, again, those are pretty much the same as they've been over the last few years. That last item, this is a new item on here, data processing equipment. I hate to put one of our engineers on the spot. Mr. Corbett had another meeting to attend, and he was probably in a better position to explain this than I am. But the data processing equipment, you see $15,000 is for an AutoCAD license, and I didn't know if one of you two wanted just to make a couple quick comments on that as far as the purpose. If you could come to Eric, if you could, yeah, if you don't mind. Or you can just sit here where Dell is.
The AutoCAD license that we use, it's year 2000, so it's a little bit outdated. And we use it more and more, AutoCAD more and more for even on like plan submittal when they bring stuff in, and we not only store a paper copy now, we have lots of digital copies, and to be able to kind of edit some of that material to get it to where we can save it the best, we use AutoCAD. And then from a design standpoint, we use it stormwater design and other things, and just general engineering things that we use. So we use it, and like I said, our copy is pretty old, and so doing the update it'll give us a lot more capabilities. And so it's an expensive piece of software, but it'd be very useful.
The Budget Committee will recall on Thursday when we talked about this that this was actually, a portion of this was budgeted under a different line item. But after our meeting with the mayor this past Friday, he just recommended we just put the whole amount under our budget under a different line item. So that's what we did. Yes. Besides that, there are a couple other sheets in here just kind of going over, what we anticipate our future needs will be as far as equipment and that kind of thing. Nothing budgeted really this year. We're expecting possibly having to replace a copier in the next year or so, and then our revenue estimate that you have. But other than that, unless you have questions, if a motion to approve would be.
Your copiers now, you own them, or they're
owned.
They're
Yes, sir.
owned. We've been trying to get into that format for a few years now, so I just wonder if y'all was owning theirs or not.
Yes, sir. They're owned.
I too would like to thank the Budget Committee for meeting and going through this in detail. I think the motion that came out of the Budget Committee was to approve pretty much unanimously.
You ready for a motion? Did you complete your motion, or did you have?
I did make, I was just asking who was.
Okay.
needed one.
I have nothing, unless you
You
just have
want a
questions.
motion?
I have
I'll
nothing
make a
further.
motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion to approve proposed budget? All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? That motion carries.
Doug, I got one question. How many vehicles did I see in here? The Plan Commission has 7 vehicles, is that right?
I
Is
think
that what
that's,
saw?
I think that sounds right. Yes, sir, 7
I
vehicles.
knew we used to put in the budget, we wanted a new vehicle. I guess we don't even put that in the budget
Well,
anymore.
usually what ends up happening is it gets pushed off every year because, I mean, we know things are tight and it's, the kind of replacement vehicle we need for the one, it's a larger suburban vehicle and we know those are expensive. So we just kind of keep pushing it off and we just make it last another year. So.
Hey, Doug.
Sir.
I'm gonna have to excuse myself because I have a economic development luncheon with the mayors at noon. One question,
Subdivision regulations.
on the subdivision regs, which you're getting ready to go into, you've passed out a draft dated February 25th. Are there changes from the January 23rd draft that we got last year? I mean, last month.
Did you pass out the?
She
Okay,
passed
all
out
right,
the
very
new
good.
one.
Okay,
and
I
I'm-
just didn't see her do it. I'm sorry.
And the reason I
Yes,
asked, are there some changes?
There are changes in there, yes, sir. The reason, there were a few things that we realized weren't in there when we passed out the original draft,
Okay.
and yes, there are changes to that.
Okay, I'll compare the two, and then, are we voting on?
No, so
anything?
this was just supposed to be for a work session. Now, and Chairman Phillips, I know that you expressed some concern that, we're getting kind of late in the morning now, and I've heard the possibility of maybe waiting till the next day meeting to do this. If that's the will of the commission, I mean, we can certainly do that. We have our consultant present, and but I mean, we told them that this might happen, so it's that's just the way things worked out today. We know that there was kind of a heavy agenda, especially with the executive session and everything. But I mean, it's up to the commission if you want me to move forward with anything or what.
I know several have other commitments that they need to leave for by noon, be there by noon, so they're having to leave, and the wishes of the commission is to postpone.
If possible.
Is that okay, Doug?
Yeah, that'll be. I mean, what we'll do is we'll shoot for the March day meeting. We've got a fairly heavy agenda for the night meeting coming up, and it seems that this kind of a discussion is probably better suited for this type of environment anyway.
Okay.
So what we can do is shoot for the day meeting in March.
Our apologies to the consultant, but we'd rather have it thorough and everybody in
Right.
attendance than, yeah.
Anything else, Doug?
You don't think anything else? No, there's nothing further.
appreciate your patience with us on the study group that's going on. If nothing else,